Hello, everybody. Welcome to our second webinar of a series of webinars that are going to be presented every Thursday until our event, our next event, which is CannabiSalud Business and Investment Summit. We're going to have this webinar in English because two of our panelists who are English speakers, and I'll introduce you guys to everybody here. I just want to thank everybody for your time and your interest in the information that we're about to share. Why does the cannabis industry have to be regenerative? My name is Lorena Beltrán. I'm the founder and director of CannabiSalud, the first international cannabis summit to take place in Mexico since 2017. And this year, we are very happy to present the first Business and Investment Summit taking place this November 18th to the 20th in Cancún, Mexico. We're going to start by introducing Alberto Curi, who is co-founder at Procana Solutions, a company here in Mexico, as well as Geoff and Patrick, who are co-founders of Regennabis. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for being here and for your time. And let's begin with Alberto. Can you please share more a little bit, about yourself? I think you're muted.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. I am Alberto Curi. Thank you so much for making this event possible, to the sponsors, to Regennabis and to UC Fields. I am an entrepreneur who studied business administration, and I have been involved in the cannabis industry since
I think we are losing him. Alberto, it's at a ranch working on a regenerative project, so his signal it's a little bit weak. We can go back to him once he established. Yeah, he's out. Okay, we'll wait for him. And in the meantime, Patrick, please.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Lorena, and everybody at CannabiSalud. Thank you for the invitation. We're delighted to be here. A little bit of background on myself. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Regennabis. We'll tell you a little bit more about Regennabis shortly. But my journey into the cannabis industry has been roughly for about 5 years. Before that, I worked in the corporate sustainability world with many of the large corporations. And really learning an in-depth understanding of the sustainable development goals and how many of the corporations today are aligned to the SDGs and how they create a business around that. And it was very important to me that sustainability, regeneration, ESG, and the sustainable development goals have been very, very critical for the growth of the cannabis industry in all of its forms. I'm Irish. I live in the US, and I'm delighted to be here. Thanks very much for the invitation.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you so much. We'll continue with Geoff, and then we'll go back to Alberto.
Great. Thank you very much, Lorena, and for arranging all of this. I'm very much looking forward to the events in Cancun later in the year, of which this is, if you like, a feeder event, a precursor of good things to come. A little bit of background about myself. I'm English speaking. I'm originally from England, the northeast of England. I've lived in California and San Francisco for about 10 years. Prior to that, I lived in Hong Kong for about 10 years with a role at that time with one of the big advisory services companies, Ernst & Young. I was a partner with Ernst & Young for many years before I decided to get off that gravy train and switch careers and pursue a life in the world of sustainability. That's where I met Patrick. We were both at a great company called Sustainable Brands. We left pretty much the same time, but maintained great contact. And as you mentioned, we both felt that there was an opportunity to sort of bring our sets of smarts, knowledge, if you like, into helping the cannabis industry grow up to be an even better version of the one that was out the door. And with our backgrounds in sustainability and now moving more towards regenerative economies, aligning the work that we do at Regennabis, and we'll come back to that in a moment, aligning all the work that we do to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals really helps ground us in the services we provide to companies to help them on a path to delivering to some of the challenges facing humanity. That if the viewers here have read the recent IPCC report from 2 or 3 weeks ago, you kind of realize that we're in trouble, and there's a great opportunity here. So it's not all doom and gloom. There are paths forward, and that's what Patrick and I have committed our careers to. So that's great to be here, and thanks ever so much for the invitation.
Thank you both. And Alberto, please.
Hello, hopefully this time you can hear me well, and I am a cannabis entrepreneur. I'm Mexican. I study business administration, and I have been involved in the cannabis industry since the beginnings of the industry in Colorado, then in California, and this led me to new different people that now allowed me to make different ventures in Mexico, from Cannabis Civil Association to law firm, and also running a regenerative farm here in the Michoacan state in the Pacific coast, where we are growing everything, not marijuana because it's not legal yet, but we are right now creating different models so we can grow regenerative organic foods in the coast without the use of any kind of agrochemical syntheticals, and aligned with the microbiology and the nature, around us. And of course, everything aligned to address the 17 SDGs established by United Nations.
Thank you so much. This is such an interesting but very important conversation. And Alberto, you answer my next question, and maybe we can hear it from Patrick and Geoff too. What exactly does it mean to be regenerative, and how does that apply to the cannabis industry? Maybe not only to agriculture, right?
Absolutely. I think we
I believe that. Sorry.
I can take that very quickly. I think we all have a different slant on what regeneration is, but for us, and Geoff can speak to it too, is really moving beyond sustainability. We don't want to just sustain ourselves. We want to build regenerative, circular economies, and sustainability is a good step, but regeneration is so much better for the planet and for our world. And we believe that the cannabis industry in all of its various forms, whether it's recreational adult use, medical, health and wellness, or the industrial hemp, all of those various different industries can contribute, when done right, to more regenerative practices, whether they be business or whether it be agricultural, and very, very much aligning to the Sustainable Development Goals. So, and that's the reason why we have coined the phrase Regennabis, regenerative cannabis. So we're really trying to set a tone in the industry that we need to be thinking about not just the economics and the profits of our business, but we really need to be thinking about what is the social impact of our business and also the environmental impact of our business. It's great to be successful, but we believe that the companies in the cannabis industry across the world, if they can start to embed regenerative business models within their business, that they will become the next leading sustainable brands of the future.
Thank you, Alberto. You go ahead, Geoff, and we can.
I was just going to add to that too. There's, as Patrick said, sustainability has served us well to some degree over the last 15, 20, 30 years. But clearly it's not enough. The IPCC report that I just referenced, it tells us that we're running out of time. And to continue as sustainability might suggest, that we just need to kind of go back to the status quo, business as usual. The problem with that is that business as usual has failed 99% of the population. And so we have to look at different models. And we feel that regenerative models are, that are, if you think of regeneration, it's really borrowed from biology, and it references life. And I think for us, it's we want to think of businesses as living beings. And if businesses behave like living beings, then they're thinking a little bit more beyond just, that economic return. Just like all of us, we're all thinking of more than just our economic health. We're thinking a lot deeper. And I think another way of helping folks understand the difference between sustainability and regenerative economies or regeneration is we're all familiar with the 3 R's of reduce, recycle, reuse. As I say, to some degree, that's done us okay, and it's been okay. But perhaps we need to find 3 new R's, which are replenish, renew, regenerate. And if we adopt those 3 R's going forward, I think we have a really great chance of delivering a thriving way of life rather than just a sustaining way of life. So that's another way of looking at regeneration.
That is correct. Totally agree with you. Thank you
Yeah,
for sharing, Alberto.
I could agree definitely with what these 2 gentlemen has said, and I would add to those commentaries that, yeah, I mean, maybe our grandfathers or our fathers in the last century could have been sustainable. Maybe it was enough, but right now we really have to commit into healing the damage done and to getting into a new balance where we don't suppose or intend to grow and grow and grow in a limit resources storage, right? Which is basically the earth. And for us, for my partners, and for me, I can say that it is very clear, and I am not willing to do a single penny in the extent or by harming any social resources or by harming any environmental resources. And even if it's 1 penny or it's $1 billion, for me, I don't even have to go and see the numbers if I know I am creating any kind of liability, direct or indirect, to the social or to the environmental. And if those 2 are not in place, I don't even have to see the numbers. Then if I know there's a really win-win situation for the society around me and for the environmental around me, then I can, go see the numbers and figure out if I am going to do this business project or development. And for me, it's the way I live it every day and how I try to make sometimes this complex conversation simple in my mind.
Yeah, definitely. It's so important, especially right now that legalization of the cannabis plant is happening all around the world, to consider regenerative practices, because it's not like an option. It shouldn't be an option anymore, right? It should be something that we have to do. It should be the only way allowed, when coming into this new industry and in growing cannabis in a regenerative practice or agriculture, right? So what do you guys imagine, if all governments if all countries will write this down in their regulation? What if they say, let's think about Mexico, because we are barely, working on legalizing and writing the regulation. How would this country or the world look like if it was established in the regulation that you could only grow cannabis through a regenerative system? Patrick?
That's it. Yeah, it's a great question, and that's where we love to think about the future and visualize the potential for for cannabis in all of its forms. I think, we need to, it's a long way to get there, but I think that the pressures with the environmental pressures that we're experiencing now with hurricanes and fires all over the world, it's crazy what's happening, and we're at an inflection point for humanity. We believe that cannabis and hemp is the solution, but the only way we can do that is by governments regulating and incorporating it into the various different countries around the world. And the only way that can happen is through education and awareness and destigmatizing what the cannabis actually is, because many of us have grown up with the wrong sort of association with cannabis. And I think, the type of education and awareness that needs to be done, it needs to be done at the very, very, very highest level for these decisions to be made. And then obviously it's a great point, Lorena. I think we're at a sort of the greatest opportunity to get this right from the very start. So with Mexico about to open up, and Colombia and many of the Latin American countries, we've seen the medical market open up in Europe. We see Africa now beginning to open up. So this is really beginning to take hold now, but it's absolutely critical we get this right from the get-go, that regenerative, moving beyond sustainable, regenerative practices, agricultural business models are adopted so we can leverage the impact that this plant can have on the people, on businesses, and then obviously on the planet. And if we think forward, we have no doubt, we have absolutely no doubt, we can get into some detail here about the impact that cannabis is going to have. It's going to be a significant driver of economic, social, and environmental impact, and therefore drive every one of those 17 sustainable development goals right up until 2030. So we believe it's a game changer for humanity, but we need to do it. We need to do it quick, and governments really need to make an effort to educate, to normalize, to regulate, and legalize cannabis across the world.
Totally. Geoff, you like to add something?
Only that, again, at Regennabis, we are nothing if not pragmatic. We realize that that there is no silver bullet, so to speak of, and no magic wand. That this will require a tremendous amount of hard work, and it will also require a tremendous community to really drive the systemic transformative shift that we really need to see. Not only in and of and by cannabis and hemp, but we think that there are paths forward here that ultimately what we want to see a regenerative economy, so regenerative finance, regenerative food, regenerative fuel, and that's the kind of modeling that requires, as I say, a massive mindset shift. But perhaps the biggest one is what I love about Alberto and his model is regenerative agriculture is already beginning to show there is a path forward. That regenerative agriculture clearly is helping restore and replenish the planet to way beyond where it was 50, 60, 70 years ago. The fundamental central point of regenerative agriculture is soil health, because some 40+% of all diversity lives in soil. So we need to really think through how we grow things. In the United States right now, with the industrial agricultural complex, which is not at all regenerative, we're on a path to see the disappearance of our topsoil in the United States within 55, 60 years, which would render the United States a dust bowl. I mean, think about that. If there is no capacity to really grow anything, then you really have a systemic crisis. And so we need to be thinking about that. And that's why these models, and not only models, but actions that Alberto has taken are great. But then I would go to the other end of the spectrum and look at regenerative finance, because ultimately, the majority of nations in the world are capitalist. Even those that say they're not are capitalist. One of the problems we really need to address around regenerative finance is the fundamental shift from the focus on a singular form of capital, economic capital, to a multi-capital approach, which is one that also delivers social impact, environmental impact, let's call it natural capital, for want of a term. And so these other forms of capital, social capital, human capital, natural capital, intellectual capital, they form the 5 areas of capital that the regenerative finance world, it really needs to move towards. And we think that that's where the challenges lie, because there's massive legacy systems already in play that fundamentally believe that the only form of capitalism that is worth looking at is economic capital, and we know that that's not the case. So there's a dose of pragmatism around what we do, but it doesn't stop us from bringing communities together to create the transformative shift that we need to see in the world. So hats off to Alberto for really paving the way and showing the way.
Yes, and as you were mentioning, we don't have time. We're running out. The sustainable goals 2030 around the corner. 8 years for that. Alberto, you're in Mexico. You already have a project around regenerative agriculture. What do you think? How do you think Mexico will look like if we implement this type of regulations around cannabis? There's so much interest around cannabis. We see, investors, companies wanting to expand, coming to Mexico, national companies as well, trying to do something in this emerging industry. So how would it look like if we will implement this type of regulations around cannabis and regenerative practices? Estás en mute.
Sorry. So the way I think it is that cannabis is important, but not because it is the topic. The topic is regenerative, and the topic is that we are ending with our world as we know it. And cannabis can bring a solution because everyone wants to join cannabis, and there's a bunch of people already thinking in growing cannabis as soon as the legal framework in their countries allows to. But for us, as a group, me as an individual, I believe it's in everyone. We are used sometimes to just point to different aspects of what is the things that have to be happening, but the first and the most important part of the regenerative is the consumer, and we as consumers has to stop spending in things that are not in synergy with the environment, with the social, and with the economics, of course. But we as consumers have a very good power and a very strong power. And I believe that if we start putting every single money in the companies that are showing this kind of values, we can really make a huge change, and not the government, not the capitalist and heavy industrial companies, everyone. And it starts from everyone. And then us as entrepreneurs, even if you are not in the industry of cannabis, we can all go regenerative and start adopting these values. And if you find out that you're making money from an environmental resource or from a social resource, and you figure out you are not in a win-win situation, well, try to balance that situation and try to give back to those sectors you are affecting. And if it's not balanceable, even if you're earning a bunch of money, I believe it's just as simple as you have to quit it. And this is the shift of mind we have to be having, all of us. And I believe, again, cannabis is an opportunity because cannabis is a cash crop that everyone will want to be growing. And if we use this inertia of a movement like cannabis to bring these regenerative values to the people, and for they can understand that the most important thing as farmers is the soil, because you need soil to grow cannabis and every single other crop in the world, and then water. And if we as farmers don't start understanding this and start forgetting about this set of mind that couple companies, not to mention them, had been putting in our minds to see the ground and the soil as something you are just using to create your food and your raw materials, and then you have to add everything, when it's a complete lie, and it's just a marketing strategy where they are trying us to believe that we need every single product of them so we can create this healthy food. But that is all lie. And of course, it's true if you are killing everything that it's in your soil. But then if you have a healthy soil and you have access to water, it doesn't really matter what you want to grow. Everything it will grow, if it's cannabis, if it's a tomato, if it's pineapple, or if it's hemp. And I believe really cannabis is important because it's such a powerful industry that can bring a lot of economic returns. But it was important 70 years ago from now. Right now, we are in a very different position as a country. And as the technological developments have advanced so much that honestly, we don't even need cannabis to start making all these projects and start to shifting all the way we are making our foods, our raw materials, and basically everything in our lives. And I believe this is the switch we have to put in our minds as individuals, and then if we are leaders of certain groups, well, as those certain groups as well.
Yeah, carry on, Patrick. Go on. You're going to say something.
Well, just a very quick point on just to elaborate on the consumer point. Consumer behavior and is shifting, and because of social media, because of transparency, they are now, and have been for the last decade, voting with their dollars and their feet for brands and companies that are committed to sustainability and now regeneration. And I think that that's going to be the same in the cannabis industry. So cannabis companies, no matter what area in the spectrum that you're on, really need to be thinking about this and about their ESG, environmental social governance strategies, because consumers are really, really very aware, very awake, and very committed to supporting companies that care not just about being a great brand, but also caring about the local communities, caring about diversity, equity, inclusiveness, and also caring, of course, about the environment. So I think that's only going to increase, and the cannabis community, there's billions of people around the world that consume cannabis in various different ways, and they're ready to support the companies that are cannabis companies that are committed to sustainability and regeneration. Sorry, Geoff.
Yeah, no, the other point I was going to make, and it's a great point you make, Patrick, another point that Alberto referenced also was when we at Regennabis and others, when we think of the cannabis industry, we sort of break it loosely down into three markets. There's the adult use recreational space, there's the medical health and wellness space, and then there's hemp, which is sometimes referred to as a cousin of or a sister of cannabis, whatever you want it whatever you want to call it. It's a slightly different plant. But the thing with hemp is frankly the opportunity for us at scale to industrialize hemp, everything from growing it to actually fabricating things from hemp, is in and of itself a huge game changer for humanity potentially. Because again, as a disruptor, if we using regenerative agricultural practices, if we use hemp as a rotating crop in amongst cornfields, wheat fields, etc., then we are replenishing the soil as we go. We are removing toxins from the soil. So it is a remediator, and that's a great thing. But at the same time, the end product can be used in so many different ways. And I think the other again worth noting is that, I referenced earlier, any industry that begins with letter F can be disrupted by an industrial hemp engine, for want of a term. Food, farming, finance, we've already referenced. No matter what it is, but and this is comes back to your original question, Lorena. I think this is where governments begin to get excited, because they're looking beyond perhaps just one market area, which is adult use recreational space, they're beginning to understand the benefits around, of the medical benefits to humanity that both, hemp derived as well as, as cannabis can provide. And I think that's where we're seeing the opening up. And this is certainly what happened at the United Nations back in December last year, when the 53 countries that form part of the committee that moved on a very narrow vote, 27 to 25, to deschedule cannabis for medical research purposes. So that's a start, and that's a great start. And then we will see how this rolling stone will really, really grow. And I think that we should be heartened by that. And I think that's, so we could look at hemp, then we look at the medical marketplace, and then we look at adult use recreational space. But this is where governments, I think, can begin to see the lifting up of their citizens, because we're releasing them from.
Did we lose Geoff?
Did we lose him?
I don't see any. I would just see you, Lorena. Is it just
Let's
you and
see.
I can continue.
Yeah, I think we lost him.
Okay.
But
You're back.
I
There
mean,
you go.
just to follow up in the conversation. Oh yeah, there's Geoff.
No, you carry on, Alberto.
So yeah, and I hopefully I'm not misexplaining myself by meaning that we don't need cannabis and hemp, because the prohibition of cannabis and especially hemp, it's the beginning of all this destruction, and all this set of mind that has led us to the grid, which is now the most absurd thing we can think, because the expend of energy is just the bigger expenditures to take it from point A to point B, and this centralized set of mind is just they took us from that point where we could have chosen hemp fields or oil-based industry. Now we are, having all these effects that are, the secondary effects of all these 70, 80 years of destruction. And now, going back to basics and going back to what Henry Ford and the founding fathers of this new set of mind were trying to shift from back in the days to now, it's the solution. And now we have to go back to the soil and try to put hemp and try to put all these different crops. And hopefully right now, all these technological developments we have had in these 70, 80 years have allowed us to incredible the economics and the visibility of all these projects will be in hemp, because will allow us as the most resistant and versatile crop in the world we can grow in soil to be versatile in these bio waste requirements. But at the end it's now the moment where we are not 100% dependent on hemp, and now we can start. And basically this is what I am doing right now in Michoacan, in different sports in Mexico, because at the end cannabis, hemp, it's only one seed, and we can be doing this with all the other seeds. And when we have the legal framework in our communities to bring hemp and to bring cannabis, well, then we put it in the ground. But we should not stop in cannabis. And definitely when cannabis and hemp are allowed into these systems, the efficiency and productivity and regeneration capabilities of these plots of land will be infinite more. So at the end, hemp and cannabis still part of the very important.
Yes, completely agree with all of you, and very interesting points of view from each of you. And I want to tell everybody who's watching us and who will come back to this video, this webinar, to listen to all this information. This is just the surface of what we're going to be talking about in CannabiSalud Business and Investment Summit. the three gentlemen that you see here, they're going to be part of a panel to continue to talk about the regenerative agriculture, regenerative cannabis, sustainability, the win-win situation of implementing hemp in regulations in all countries, and of course, just to touch in more detail the involvement of the United Nations. I was very surprised when Patrick and Geoff shared with me that the United Nations is actually looking at the cannabis industry as an industry that can be an example to accomplish the Sustainable Development Goals. And just as Geoff was mentioning, with this event that they're putting together along with the United Nations, it just definitely gives us hope. And I think it's just amazing news, that hemp, it's been looked at that plant that can really help us with so many things. But just as Alberto was saying, it's not the only plant here on Earth that we haven't really looked at or pay attention to that can also do many of the things that cannabis or hemp can do, right? And I just believe that by opening the door to this plant that has been prohibited for so many years, it's also going to help us look at these other plants, right? There's just so much curiosity, and there's so much attention only to one plant, but I'm pretty sure that the cannabis plant is just sacrificing herself, to open up the door to explore other plants and other opportunities out there that are so needed right now in our world as humanity. So we run out of time. We are trying to keep this webinar short so we can, invite people to join us at the event in Cancun from the 18th to the 20th of November. And again, a panel with this gentleman, and we're going to have more people joining this panel, and people that have been participating in the documentary Kiss the Ground that I highly suggest for you guys to watch. It's also a summary of the things that we have been talking about. If we're killing the soil, if we're killing biodiversity in the soil, we're killing ourselves, pretty much, right? So I invite you to watch Kiss the Ground, and we'll have the participation of people behind this documentary at this event. So please join us, and you can check all the information on CannabiSalud.com and our social media, Facebook, this platform where you're watching us, and Instagram, as well as Regennabis and Procana Solutions, which are the companies of our friends in this panel. And yeah, we are so happy to see you at the event. Thank you so much for joining us. And just to close, anything you guys would like to add and tell our audience?
Well, I'll just quickly say thanks very much for the invite. Honored to be here, and I'm so excited to see what the foundations that the Mexican industry is building, and the principles of sustainability, the Sustainable Development Goals, regeneration. This is real leadership from a great country of Mexico. So hoping that other countries can start to learn from the processes and the commitments and the regulations and the foundations that Mexico is building. It's wonderful. So we look forward to seeing everybody in Cancun for this conversation. We'll elaborate on a lot more. We're looking forward to it. And thanks very much again for the invite. And very nice to meet you, Alberto.
Yeah, I'll echo that. Very much looking forward to it. Thanks ever so much for this webinar. So looking forward to meeting Alberto in person. It's just, you're a rock star, and all the work that you're doing in this space is really remarkable, exemplary. I mean, it's great leadership and great stewardship. We should clone you as much as we can and distribute you throughout the world, but you're doing a great job, and I'm very much looking forward to meeting you in Cancun, if not before. And thank you, Lorena. Very much looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alberto.
No, thank you, guys. I'm very honored for your words. It's a pleasure to meet you, and thanks for spreading the word. I really believe it's very important for us to spread the word, to motivate, individuals to spend their money in this type of companies, to spend their time and their money into having information in these topics, and if they have the possibility to invest money or help a project in some way or somehow of these characteristics, get involved and be part of it, because there's nothing more beautiful than to serve and to help evolution. And I really believe that's what also you start to believe as an individual. I really believe regeneration starts with the soil, and then the soil will allow us to have healthy food, healthy medicines with cannabis and other plants, and then this hopefully will regenerate our humans' bodies and hopefully our conscience. And this is the road to success, and count on us. And thank you again for making this happen, and what a pleasure to meet you all, and Lorena.
Thank you, everybody. And I'm sorry for the noise in the background, but those were amazing words to close this webinar. Thank you to the three of you. And thanks to our sponsors, our title sponsors, Juicy Fields, and of course, our allies, Regennabis, Procana Solutions, and many others that are going to be there at the event. Thanks so much and have a great one.
Take care.
Ciao. Take care. Bye-bye. Ciao. Thank you. Bye.